smiles are few and far between. The only thing I have are my memories. The road looks dark and lonely ahead. The only thing I feel is my regret. I couldn't stay ahead, but I won't let you see me cry. No, no. I'll turn my head to an open sky. Don't make me say goodbye. I'm not ready. No, I can't see you cry. I'll close my eyes. I'll close my eyes. I'll close my eyes.
My name is Dominik Spangler. I'm 19. I grew up with my mom and dad, my big brother. Lived as a pretty happy child. I made like a lot of friends. Growing up in the mountains is, honestly, as a kid, it's kind of boring. You know, it takes so long to get from one place to another. It's hard to get like to your friend's house without spending a long period of time on the road. It's just harder to get places, and as you get older, it's harder to find work. I think I first discovered myself around about 6 or 7, honestly. A lot happened around that time when I was 6 or 7. I was a very adventurous child. I liked to try everything. I would do things, or I'd try things if someone offered me. When I was 7, I lived in the apartments and I had a friend over. So one day she was like, "Hey, do you want to learn how to kiss?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, sure. I mean, why not? It's just a kiss, it won't hurt. I mean, it doesn't mean anything." So we went in the closet and we kissed, and little did I know that that was a thing, who I really was and what I should be proud of for it. In 6th grade, I talked to my best friend. We were talking and I said, "Hey, I think that I don't feel right, like my body doesn't suit me." So she was like, "Well, there's a word for that, and I think it's, you know, something to do with not feeling like you're in the right body." I was like, "Okay, well, we need to figure this out." And I figured out that I was trans. I told my boyfriend at the time, who decided that it was wrong. So he would text my mom, tell her everything, tell her I'm trans, tell her that I'm not straight. So she found out like that, and then everyone in the school found out because he told them in this high school and in the middle school. Everyone reacted pretty horribly. Mom's side of the family, they're accepting towards it, but to some degree, some of them had told Mom that I shouldn't have been like this. They yelled at me, they screamed at me, they kicked me out of the family a few times. Especially on Easter, I got kicked out like 2 years ago. So being myself around the family and being myself around the house was accepted, but I don't think anyone really liked the fact that I didn't really fit in middle school. I was like a really outcasted person. I didn't really have many friends, so when everyone found out, they found another reason to make fun of me, and it kind of got worse at school. The teachers did nothing. The teachers were just as bad for making fun of kids who didn't really fit in, I guess. They seen someone making fun of me, but they just passed it off like it was just another kid who didn't deserve the right to have their own personality. They'd pretty much just tell you to suck it up, go to class, and don't be such a crybaby over the whole situation. My view on life after that had got worse. I seen that, you know, this is who I am, but I don't feel right. I don't love myself in any form. I don't really know where I'm supposed to be. And it just made me feel like I was not worth life. I attempted suicide a few times because I felt as if I stayed alive any longer, I wouldn't make any friends, I wouldn't have love, I would just be the cause of all the problems. So the school pretty much just told me, hey, it's your fault, and made me feel like I didn't need to be alive. They pretty much tell me to kill myself every day. My dad had just passed. The occurrence of finding out about myself, and then my father had passed, so I didn't really have him to talk to. But my mom was as supportive as she could be, but she was really hurt. I was 11 years old on my first suicide attempt by drowning myself. I came home from school that day, and I knew that night I was going to do it. I'd already wrote my note, and I already had told goodbye to the people I needed to say goodbye to. I locked the bathroom door, and I'm laying in the tub. I think I might have took a few pills to try to make it go faster, and I kindly fell asleep in the tub and nearly drowned it, but my mom busted the door open. And to this day, she thought I was just fell asleep in the tub. So I loved her. I got to come home and see her every day and talk to her, but I never really tried to tell her what was going on at school or at home. I always figured that it'd just make it worse on her. So life at home was okay, other than my big brother. My brother and I used to be really close. We go years without seeing each other. So in a way, when he was doing all this, I know he'd leave again, so I didn't really worry about it too much. I guess when he left, I'd say, well, I guess I'll see him in a year or two. And I would look past it, but it still hurt thinking that he didn't love me, and Mom didn't really seem to notice that my brother was being kindly rude to me at the time. Since I found out in 7th grade that I figured that I needed to find a name that suited me, because everyone kept saying, and I was like, well, yeah, that's my name, but not really. I don't think that name suits me. It just seems wrong. You're not talking about me, you're talking about another person. And when I came up with Dominik, I was kind of like, okay, maybe I could get people to use this. And as they kept using it, there are those people who still use it. It hurts, but they don't realize that. And they're like, oh, well, I've known you since you were a kid, therefore I mess up and I can say that. Yes, you can, but you also need to correct it, and they never do usually. So that kind of affects your dysphoria in a way that no one can really understand if they don't know you or know how you feel when that name is used. And my father had died in 5th grade, so I didn't really get really depressed because I had my aunt. My father wouldn't have wanted me sad, so I tried to stay happy. I had colorful hair, I dressed all bright and happy. But once 6th grade hit and my aunt had passed away, who was pretty much like my sister, we were so close, we were never apart. That's when I found out I had bad depression that led me into cutting and led me into isolation. I'd stay in isolation for days and days and not talk, not do anything. I'd just sit in the back and watch. You couldn't get me to go to school, couldn't get me to come up and eat. I wouldn't do anything but lay in bed and cry and wonder why I was even alive. See, where I started so young at self-harm, I think the first time I was thinking it was a dumb idea. It was just a one-time thing, It was never meant to be more than what it really was. The first few times I was thinking, this is crazy, this is something that shouldn't help, and I know it doesn't, but at the same time, as I would do it, I felt this pressure leave my body. I'd feel calm, like everything on my shoulders and everything in my heart and head would just fade. I was numb. When I first seen Letcher County Central, my stomach dropped. I felt sick to my stomach. I didn't know any of these people. I knew from the start I wasn't going to fit in. And I knew that the bullying was going to get worse because there's more people. I kindly knew that I couldn't trust anyone from LCC. That like, if I met a lot of people up there, a lot of times it'll just be betrayal and hurt, which proved to be wrong. I was about 2-3 months in, I believe. Freshman year, I go in thinking that I wouldn't fit in. I knew that, but I kindly figured that somewhere there was another person who would understand or would be into the stuff I was into. The last few relationships I've had throughout my high school year here was pretty much everyone was abusive. They would start off treating me like Dom, acting like I'm who I am, and then once we got together and got really close, started to know them, they kind of turned their back, and that's when their point of view would change. They'd slowly try to change me into who I wasn't, and you could tell. They'd have that look in their eyes every time someone would say the right name. There was this teacher who I didn't really know because I was a freshman, but everybody in the school was scared of her. I had barely kissed my girlfriend on the lips, and we started walking away. They walked one way and I walked the other, and the teacher comes over and starts yelling at me. Stay away from each other, not to kiss, not to touch each other, no hugging. I was like, look, he has his hands down her pants and you're not doing anything about it, but I barely kissed my partner and leave, and you are throwing this fit. It is not fair, this is really wrong, and you know it's wrong. She yelled at me, and I yelled and kind of lost my temper. Said a lot of things to her that I'd rather not say again because they were bad. Because teachers were really rude to me. The teachers would not let me go to the bathroom. They wouldn't let me get a drink of water. I wasn't allowed to walk. If I came in class crying, they'd just laugh it off and walk away or talk crap about me. I have dealt with the principal trying to tell me that I needed to stay away from people due to the fact that I wasn't fitting in with the right crowds. So there were these kids in my 4th period in algebra. We had a substitute that day. The substitute just watched it happen along with all the other kids. These kids started making fun of me. They called me a faggot. And I tried so hard not to cry. I was like, okay, it's just a word. It doesn't mean much, right? They kept going until I started to get mad. They were just laughing at my clothes, laughing at my hair, laughing at my voice. And so I stood up and said, if you don't stop, I'm gonna bash your fucking head in, every one of you. And with that, I sat down and started crying, and everyone was laughing at me. So when I went to 5th period, the principal and the police came over, and I'm crying at my desk, which no one even dared to even touch me or ask me if I was okay. They just left me alone to sob in my own little world. They came in, and they said, we need you to come with us. Why did you say that? I told them, and they were just like, well, that's not what we care about. What we care about is, why did you terroristic threaten the school? I said I didn't. So the only option I had was to get in the back of the police car, go to the police station, where they decided I needed to go to a psych ward for a week and 1 day. Being there was really hard. I was very alone at this time. I wasn't allowed to call my family. I wasn't allowed to see my family. We weren't allowed to talk or touch each other when they did visit. They didn't really prescribe me what they needed to. They kind of misdiagnosed me. So after that, they were like, yeah, I'll call your mom. You're getting out. Tell her to come get you at like 11:30. I said, okay. I go, open the door, walk in there, call, everything's fine. Until later that evening, I said, well, Mom said she'll come get me, everything's fine. They said, no, that's not right. You're going to jail right after this. You don't have a choice. So I sat around and waited for the cops all day and cried myself to sleep. Nearly thought about drowning myself in that shower. But I couldn't tell because they keep me in there longer, and then that means I'd have to wait to go to jail, which I knew I couldn't get out of. So I went to jail for a week and had the hardest time of my life. But while I was there, I did make people understand more about the situation, and they all think that there's something that should have been done, that even when I got out, it wasn't really possible. I have had one positive relationship throughout the whole thing. In 2016, I had finally found someone who had treated me right. We were really close, and I knew I could trust this person with everything in my life. He would be there to support me whether it was bad or good, and he would help me figure out what I needed to do to figure out the next step. And whether we're just friends or more, whatever happens, at least I know that one person will always be there. October, I went to Massachusetts with the Hands Over the Hills project. I went with them to Leverett. We stayed 3 days with our host families, who were all very sweet, and we instantly made friends. So I told them about this whole situation at school and not fitting in, and they were really scared. And I was like, well, you know, I'd love to live down here with you guys. I would love to be in a place that is so accepting. Everything up there was LGBT safe. There were so many different types of people up there who seemed to have been happy. And I was like, well, if I really wanted to be happy, I guess I could move here. But there's no chance. There's no way in hell I would be able to afford moving out of Kentucky. When the Leverett people came here to Letcher, this time it was after the school incident. So after all of that happened at school and I've been arrested, they decided that we needed to find a way to make this situation better. They had told me that there might be a possible way I could move to Massachusetts and that I could go to school there and finish school, since I'd been kicked out for a couple of months and didn't have a real way to finish my education. So after planning it for a while, I went back and things started to go in order. I waited for a month or so before I got to go to court and ask about it, thinking that the court was going to say no because of the whole situation of the school threat, which was counted to a 3rd degree. I was thinking they would say no, and I was just hoping that there would be a way to get out of here finally. So once I finally heard them say yes, my heart just, I've never felt so great in my life, knowing that I can get out of here, knowing that I can finally start to transition, start to make myself better and do what's better for me. Even though I'm going to miss home, it'd be better off if I was in a place where I knew I could belong, not somewhere where I feel like I shouldn't be.
Dreamed of a home in the Badlands, in a gully nobody stopped. A green tree was there to shade me by a trickle of bourbon down rocks. What blood spilled on the rocks there, you can see how it stains just like wine. It was only a matter of sweet time, might have to leave you underneath. So get out and wander when you feel the need. See to a drifter, you don't drift too deep. And if you stay put and feel fine in your home, don't drown the town with the way your heart floods. Neighbors and strangers, treat them just like your kin, and that's